Hey everybody, it's ScomletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today I'll be playing another Arena Cube draft. Without further ado, let's get into the draft. We've got a pretty sweet pack as always in the Arena Cube, lots of directions to go. Key to the Archive could be one of these safer picks as nice mana ramp for any of the slower decks in the format. As it is colorless, it's going to add whatever colors of mana that we need as well. If I want to get aggressive, we can take Giver of Runes, which is fantastic for white aggro decks, or Abbot of Carol Keep for red aggro. Honestly, there's not too much else in here that's that exciting. There's like Titania's Command and Jin Gitaxias for big 6-7 drop finishers. But there's plenty of those in the cube. Could start with like a Triome or something for fixing, but that's similar to just starting with the Key to the Archive. I think I'll take one of the aggro dorks like the Abbot or the Giver of Runes, but I'm going to focus on white this time around since I've done a lot of red aggro. We've done mono red, we've done red black, we've done red white. Maybe we'll start with white this time around with the Giver of Runes. And for pack 1, pick 2, we get some pretty nice follow-ups here. We've got a Soldier of the Pantheon for just a 1-mana 2-1 to get on the ground running, nice and quick. We've also got Wedding Announcement, which is going to spit out 3 1-1s, then give everything +1/+1, or it's going to draw us multiple cards, which can be pretty good. We've got Archangel Elspeth, which is a relatively powerful planeswalker, not one of my favorites in the cube, though I think I prefer the Soldier and the Wedding Announcement over that. And I think I'll probably just go with the Wedding Announcement here. It's a pretty flexible card. It's going to be great value no matter what. Going to be a 3-for-1 every time. At least 3 creatures and then buffing your board, or at least 3 pieces of card draw and then buffing your board. So Wedding Announcement is just a good amount of value for pretty much any deck in white, so we can take that here. Again, huge finishers like a Tali. Wormcoil Engine's a pretty safe finisher to take since it's colorless, but let's get into some white aggro nonsense, and never really spoke about why I actually like Giver of Runes a lot. The really nice thing about this card is it's going to force your opponent to use removal on the Giver of Runes, so it's this lightning rod for removal that keeps your other creatures safe. So not the greatest if you just have a ton of cards like Usher of the Fallen, which is going to be the pick here, but it is fantastic once you start slamming down really powerful like 3 and 4 mana creatures. There's even some 2-drops you really want to protect. So say I have an Adeline coming up, that's the creature with power equal to the number of creatures you control and 4 toughness, and then every time you attack, you spit out another 1/1 attacking. She's like an incredible card that is always going to get blown up as quickly as possible by your opponent, and Giver of Runes is just going to make it so your opponent cannot do that until they kill your Giver of Runes first. So really, really nice card. We are going to take Usher of the Fallen there, just a great aggressive body, 1-mana 2-1. It also makes your curve perfect no matter what, because if you don't draw anything to play on turn 2, you can just boast with the Usher of the Fallen, get a nice little 1/1 token out of it. So it helps make sure you're doing something with your mana and expanding your board state every turn. So the card is super sweet. Now we have March of Otherworldly Light for a little bit overcosted but flexible removal, or we have Selfless Savior for just another way to protect bigger creatures later. Like both of these, seeing as we do have 2 1-drops already between Giver and Usher, I might be sort of interested in March, but we really want an aggressive strategy removal that can punch upward. So removal that maybe for 2 mana I can clear out a 3 mana or 4 mana creature, and this punches downward. So like for 3 mana or 4 mana, I'm getting rid of a 2 mana or 3 mana thing. So it's not exactly what I want in aggro. I think it's better in like control. I guess I'll go with Savior over it, but it is still very close. It's still a good removal spell. Now we can easily take Amiria's Call. I like trying to stay as close to monocolor as possible in aggressive strategies, as any stumbling on mana is going to be even worse, because the whole point is that you're tempoing out your opponent by slamming down cards, making the most of all of your mana turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, hitting them as quickly as possible, and if all of a sudden I have a Searing Blood in my hand and I have a Plains and a Mountain on board and then I'm just not doing anything turn 2, I'm falling behind pretty quickly in that I'm not kind of keeping that ball rolling, keeping the aggro coming. So when there are solid white cards left in the pack, we're going to keep taking them. When there aren't, that is when we're going to speculate towards a second color, and that is going to be now. Pick 6 here of pack 1. We've got Life of Toshiro Umezawa, flexible black card. Bloodthirsty Adversary is probably just the pick, an incredible aggro card in red. 2 mana for 2/2 haste. We can kick it for 3 mana. any number of times and then recast an instant or sorcery with mana value 3 or less from our grave for each time we kicked it, which is really, really sweet. So it will be a double red card when we draw it on turn 5, but I think it's still pretty easy to splash in. If we're going to be mostly white, we can still go like a 10-7 split to make our mana easy, as long as we don't have any cards that are required to be double red. And this can just be a 2 mana 2/2 haste, which is fine. Ooh, pick 7 Kumano faces Kakazan. I think Thalia is great as well, but this is like one of the strongest aggro cards in the entire cube, which is an excellent sign for red-based aggro. So, much as I love trying to stick as close to monocolored as possible, I think Kumano is strong enough and enough better than Thalia that we're going to go for the Kumano here. Pick 8. A Gonjo is going to be fantastic no matter what. It's just going to replace a Plains in our deck and be strictly better for the most part. Elishnorn's fine, but actually kind of a bit slow and weird for an aggro deck. Showdown of the Scalds is huge card draw, though, for red-white aggro, so it's really Showdown or a Gonjo here that I'm interested in. And I think I want to go Showdown of the Scalds. It's huge card draw that also buffs the board a bunch. Don't love how I'm pushing towards the 2-color aggro deck, again, since I do prefer the monocolored ones, but we are in a great position to be drafting Boros aggro, it's looking like. Now I'm just going to speculate on a Shockland, because this equipment is just not the greatest. It's fine, but really would rather that not make the cut. Same with Invasion of Mercadia. Bit weak by cube standards. You have to basically let your opponent gain 4 life if you're trying to get the value off of this, because you're going to have to keep sending attacks at the battle for it to be worth it. So I'll just take the Elspeth. Okay, I did not like that audio effect. That was super weird. There's Sunbaked Canyon. We are quite likely to want to be red and white, where we need to take these dual lands pretty highly again, so we're not stumbling on mana at all. But it's very tempting to just take the Night Counselor here. I'm going to go for the Sunbaked Canyon. I think the best argument for the Night Counselor would be if we still want to be pushing towards mono white, and I think at this point, especially now that we get pick 12 Lore Hold Command, we want to be very, very open to at least the red splash. I don't think I want double red removal like Searing Blood, but I don't think I'm going to go full mono white in this draft pod. But we'll see. I mean, stranger things have happened.
How hard could it be?
Okay, pack 2, pick 1. Day of Judgment and Elesh Norn are both fantastic cards for more controlling, slower white decks. Definitely not what we're doing. Ao the Dawn Sky is fine for this deck. Little expensive, but very high impact. It's going to have a great trigger when it dies, so as long as your opponent doesn't exile it, it'll do something even if they kill it, which is great. Nahiri is just kind of narrow and more defensive, not super into her. Enthusiasm's a great removal spell, a very easy splash as well, just requires a single red mana. So I think the big competition here is between Mephit's Enthusiasm and Ao. Devil's Play is kind of a finisher, but a pretty expensive one for the X mana up front, a red and X that's a little bit overcosted, and the flashback, obviously because it's flashback and it's giving you extra value, is extremely overcosted. But still can be good for sure. I think I'm going to take the Enthusiasm here over the great 5-drop flyer, just simply because it's a 5-drop mostly. Wandering Emperor, that is an insane card. Wandering Emperor is just nuts because she's going to be great in control, in aggro, in mid-range, in anything. Could probably take her, but I'm also a very big fan of the Restoration of a Gonjo. It's a little bit slower than just like a straight-up aggro card, but the amount of value that you get off of it is fantastic. You draw plains, you can then discard that plains and put it onto the board, or discard the plains to put something else from your grave onto the board. And then you also get a 3/4 that's an army in a can, spitting out creatures every time it attacks or blocks. So much is going on for such a cheap mana cost on the Restoration of a Gonjo. There's also Mana Tithe, which is better the farther away you are from control. So if we're like Boros aggro, no one's ever playing around Mana Tithe. And we can get some really good stuff out of it. It's also really easy to hold up for a single white mana. It's a hard choice. Mana Tithe, Restoration, Wandering Emperor. I think I'm going to go Wandering Emperor.
And I will protect
But all of those are fantastic. Pick 3 is going to be an easy, intrepid adversary. I'm going to focus up on white more than red. Leave red as mostly a splash, like I was saying. Probably going to end up on like 10 plains, 7 mountains, and then that number changes based on the number of duels that we have. Those are going to help get those numbers up really easily. So we want to focus on the better white cards when we can, and I think Intrepid Adversary is fantastic. A 2-mana 3/1 lifelinker, great for an aggressive deck on curve, but you also can kick it a bunch of times for whenever you draw it later in the game and get a bunch of extra value out of it. So it's nice and flexible too. No red-white dual land here. There is a 5-drop finisher, which is fine. Not a big fan of Heliod. 2 solid removal spells between Electrostatic Blast and Ossification. Both have their own upsides. The Ossification can clear out anything, and it can exile it. The Electrostatic Blast, however, kills smaller things, just things with 2 toughness or less, but it can also shoot our opponent's face, and it could also be card draw. I think I'm going to lean towards Ossification here. Being able to clear out larger blockers with this card is just fantastic. Being able to clear out planeswalkers with it, being able to exile is great. I think Ossification is worth it over the Blast, plus it has the upside of being in white instead of red. And I do think we want a cheap removal spell over kind of a 5-drop finisher like Lyra. Again, there's a lot of those in the cube. Not a ton of the great cheap interaction. It's going to be hard to fight over all of that. Alright, Birth of Melodus is a good card. Not for aggro, though. Nahiri's Warcrafting is a great way to clear something out of the way and draw another card. Skyclave Apparition is a great way to clear something out of the way and put a creature on the board. And Goldspan Dragon is a great finisher. 4/4 Flying Haste, it just immediately starts chipping in for 4 damage a turn while spitting out treasure tokens that are supplying with double the normal count. The treasures are all 2 mana. So Goldspan's fantastic, Skyclave's fantastic. I think those are the main competition here. I'm going to, again, just keep leaning towards the white cards primarily. Plus, removal plus a creature is just always the stone cold nuts. Pick 6, we can take Restoration of Eiganjo. I'm getting all my cards mixed up. We can take Restoration Angel. I just saw the word Restoration and got excited about the saga. But that's not going to be back till pick 9, if it wheels. So I'm taking Restoration Angel here, again, because it's white, but also it's very similar to Townraiser Tyrant, in that it's just going to be a big flyer for us, but it's a little bit more flexible. Townraiser is going to be better against opponents with a lot of non-basic lands, obviously, but Restoration Angel is going to be in our main color, and it's going to be better against removal. It's going to be better against, well, mainly just against removal, but also a little bit better against counter spells because we can flash it in during our opponent's end step, get them to tap out for their counter spell, and then guaranteed cast something during our turn. So there are things that Restoration Angel plays better against, even if we're not getting value from the Enter the Battlefield trigger. And we've got a couple ways to get value out of the Enter the Battlefield trigger. Not a lot. Not a lot, to be honest, but we've got like Skyclave Apparition where we can give them a token back, but then exile another thing. And maybe something else like that. That pick was a pretty easy Adeline, but we were very sad to see Adeline and the red-white Shockland in the same pack. That's a bit of a bummer, but Adeline's like the best 3-drop for white aggro pretty much ever printed, so we kind of have to take that. Dragon Master is a 1-drop, so it looks like an aggro card, but it needs 6 lands, so it's not. Eternal Wanderer is definitely not at 6 mana, so we just take Lion Sash. Don't know if we're playing it. Our opening pack, we got back the AO, which was the other card we were considering taking, so that's exciting. We got the Mana Tithe and the Restoration of Eiganjo and the Rekindling Phoenix out of red. Really excellent draft pod to be in red-white aggro. Do I take the Ranger, the Restoration, or the Tithe here? Got 3 1-drop creatures. Kind of makes me excited about Ranger. Mana Tithe is so sweet, though, too. I'm actually going to go Mana Tithe. Let's be a little annoying here. Take the Tithe. Now we take the Firebrand. Now we take the Lyra that came all the way back. We could also take the Electrostatic Blast. That would be an option. We're not going to make it to full mono white here. We're still definitely playing some red, I think. So Blast is certainly an option, but I think I'm still going to go Lyra there. Now we can take Older Raven Guard, which I don't even remember what it does because it's an Alchemy exclusive card, but who knows, maybe we'll play it. We get the Town Razor Tyrant back. I'll take that over Flamestoker. So we'll just get both of those cards, and I was kind of talking about how they're both solid, but the Restoration Angel just got a slight benefit to me, or a slight buff. Slight preference there. Alright, here I think I'm going to take Robber of the Rich over Monastery Mentor. We had a ton of non-creature spells. This could be a great army in a can, but I think we want to try to get pretty creature heavy, and Robber of the Rich as a potential card draw engine. Stealing cards out of our opponent's deck is pretty fun, pretty powerful. The haste is also great. So we take Robber, hope to wield the Den of the Bugbear, but based on how this draft pod's going, maybe we'll get Monastery Mentor back too, and we'll have to choose between those. It's a possibility. Let's sort out my removal spells here so we can see what our creature curve looks like. Yeah, no, it's been sort of a creature, Forge is sort of a creature, but normally I do sort Planeswalkers kind of with the creature count since they do impact the board most of the time, but for this really aggressive deck, I'm going to focus on just the literal factual creature count mostly. Curve's looking excellent, and now we're getting a Luminarch Aspirant, fantastic 2-drop. I am tremendously happy to have Giver of Runes and Selfless Savior in this deck, because those are cards that are going to make any of our just really good 2 and 3 mana creatures even better. Because kind of the only flaw of something like Luminarch Aspirant or an Adeline is that your opponent can just kill it with one removal spell before it really triggers at all. So if you have ways to protect them, they just get even better. And yeah, Luminarch Aspirant's going to be nuts. Light Up the Stage could be fine card draw. That's the only thing we would maybe play. I don't think I'll end up playing it, but maybe. Trying to pick up Light Up the Stage, not Town Razor Tyrant. There's no universe where we don't wheel the Rip Apart, and we probably will touch the Spirit Realm as well. I'm actually going to take Hellrider here. We're a pretty creature-heavy aggro deck, and Hellrider can just add so much damage to your board so quickly. If we curve out, which is a distinct possibility looking at our curve of creatures, we go 1-drop, 2-drop, and then on turn 3 play a 3-drop or a second 2-drop. That's 3 creatures. Then we play Hellrider on 4, and we're attacking with 4 creatures. 7 extra damage that turn off of Hellrider, 4 from the triggers and 3 from its power, so Hellrider can get absurd quickly. Speaking of things that can get absurd quickly, there are many in this pack. Magda for mana ramp, Play with Fire, not something that can get absurd quickly, that's just removal, but then Maul of the Skyclaves. You just slap this on your 2-mana 2/2 and you're talking about a 4/4 flying first strike. That is going to be almost impossible to block well at all. A lot of the times your opponent's just not going to have anything that can block it, and even if they do, the odds of it being anything but a chump block are so low because they're facing probably at minimum a 4-power first striking creature. So I'm going to take the Maul of the Skyclaves there. I think I can just find some easy quick kills. It's pretty busted. Now we take Clarion Spirit because we've got an excellent curve for it with a lot of 1 and 2 mana things to do to make sure we can cast 2 spells in 1 turn and get a wide board state. Army in a can, as I say quite often. Now we've got more armies in a can. Mikaeus is tempting. Buff the whole board over and over, but I think I'm going to go with the Legion War Boss, just spitting out multiple creatures off the 1 card. Like how it fits into the curve as well, but that's one of the sweet things about Mikaeus is no matter what, it's going to fit into anywhere on the curve, being an X-mana spell, but I think I'll go Legion Warboss over Mikaeus, pretty close between the two. I think I've got enough interaction to not need to take Volcanic Spite over one of them. And I'm certainly not going to take Blessed Alliance over one of them. Alright, I'm going to go Pillar of Flame here. I love the efficiency on this card. Just 1 mana, 2 damage. It can also exile. It can shoot your opponent's face. And it doesn't require 2 red mana like Collective Defiance. As good as this card is too, the Pillar is just going to be much easier to cast. It's nice and cheap. We did not wield a Monastery Mentor. That's actually a little bit sad. I don't think we would have been super impressed with it, but I think I would have preferred it a little bit to Den of the Bugbear. Because I do find that these lands that enter the battlefield tapped once you have 2 or more, that is actually kind of a big downside. Because if your opening hand, if you keep a 2-lander, which this deck will do quite often, and you've got like an Adeline or a War Boss in hand or something, and then you top deck the Den as your third land. Super, super rough. Playing that tapped turn 3 and not playing your War Boss or your Adeline or whatever.
Let's make this quick. I've got other things to burn.
Alright, well, we got both Touch the Spirit Realm and Rip Apart back out of here. I actually think I prefer Touch the Spirit Realm a little bit. It can't kill enchantments like Rip Apart can, but it can deal with anything else that Rip Apart can do for just 1 more mana. And it can kill more things because it's exiling larger creatures than 3 toughness creatures. So we'll go Touch the Spirit Realm there. It's also a little easier on our mana base. Let's keep that curve low. Let's take the Magda over the 5-drop there. I'm probably not playing either of these. I guess I'll take Mishra's Command. That could find a kill out of nowhere, very similar to like a Devil's Play style fireball card to shoot our opponent's face. Alright, well, deck's seeming pretty good. We get to cut 13 cards out of it as well. Probably want to cut mostly red cards here and get that mana base looking nice and easy. I don't think we have 13 red cards, and even if we did, we'd be lowering our card quality a bit. Yeah, we don't. We still would need to play at least 3 red cards here, and then we'd have to run some of our weakest white cards. So I guess that's what I'll do right now. Let's find our weakest white cards that we just don't really want to play so we can see how many red cards we really need in this deck. So first off, sort out the definite non-creatures. I'll count Wandering Emperor and Archangel sort of like on the creature curve because they do impact the board pretty massively the second we drop them. Same with Wedding Announcement. It's immediately dropping 1/1s out, and then it'll give our whole board +1/+1 later. So another way to impact the board, and that's the important part about looking at your creature curve. You want to look at the cards that you're playing proactively during your turn to affect the board. The cards that you're just dumping out there, expanding your game plan, expanding your board state, versus the cards that are mostly reactive, that aren't going to be like expanding your board by themselves, mostly like removal and counterspells and stuff. That's why the non-creature pile versus the creature pile is how it generally is, but you can do like some enchantments and planeswalkers that you're always going to be dumping out like the turn you hit them. If you're going to be dumping them out on curve, then look at them on the mana curve. Alright, so I mean, I like all of our cards here pretty much. We could lower some of the 4 or 5 drops, maybe drop one of the Planeswalkers. I prefer the Wandering Emperor to the Elspeth generally, but Elspeth, I guess, might be a little better in aggro because we can just dump her out, immediately give something 2 counters and flying. The Wandering Emperor, if we're in an aggressive position, we're just getting like a +1/+1 counter first strike, or we're getting a 2/2. Just a little less impactful. I don't know, neither are actually that insane in aggro. I think they're still both going to be good enough. We could cut like one of the 2 Planeswalkers, could cut 1 or 2 of the 5 drops as well, just lowering the mana curve in general. Probably rather cut Lyra, since she's the weakest to just 1-for-1 removal. If we slam down Lyra and they just go for the throat, just destroy target creature, it's like, alright, well, my 5 mana card has just been deleted for 2 mana and we didn't get anything out of that deal. At least with AO, we get that little backup plan, and we probably don't need the lifelink in most matchups, so this is going to be just as much damage as Lyra would be, while having kind of a backup plan. So I think I like AO over Lyra. And Lion Sash I do not like very much. It requires quite a hefty mana sink to really start paying off in terms of the size we want it to be for the cost, and we don't really want to be dumping a bunch of mana into a mana sink in an aggro deck like this. We want to be curving out and just impacting the board immediately. That's part of why we're also interested in cutting 4 and 5 drops over cutting some other cheap stuff that might not seem that high impact, like Selfless Savior. Just being able to more consistently just keep slamming things down early, I think, is worth cutting the bigger late game plays instead. I think I'll just start with that. We'll cut Lyra and Lion Sash, and then we'll put at least 5 red cards into this deck. So what do we have? We want to, again, just be impacting the board as quickly as possible and curving out as well as possible. I think starting things off with that Kamana Faces Kakazan is a great way to do that. We want to make sure we have enough 1 and 2 drop creatures that we can consistently get the +1/+1 counter off of it, but it is going to be insane if we drop this thing down turn 1, and that is the plan, so definitely put that in. Definitely like the Pillar of Flame for efficiency as interaction and the Enthusiasm for efficiency, but we might have to cut some non-creatures to put these in. We'll probably be cutting some lands here again, getting that curve lower. As I said with Kumano Faces Kakazan, and also just for an aggro curve in general, also with Clarion Spirit, probably want to put a lot of 2-drop creatures in here. So I love the Firebrand for clearing out blockers out of the way, getting extra damage in. Robber the Rich can be a card draw engine. Magda can ramp us up. Adversary, actually a little bit sketchy in here, because when you look at our white spells, we've got 2 aura-based removal spells or enchantment-based removal spells. So the number of cards we can actually kick and recast off of Adversary is pretty small. It's just Pillar of Flame and Enthusiasm. Because Mana Tithe, we obviously can't flashback a counter spell during our turn and do anything with it, because it'll trigger the second that we cast the adversaries, so we'll just be casting a Mana Tithe with nothing on the stack that doesn't do anything. So there's only 2 spells we have that actually work with the Bloodthirsty Adversary Kicker, so this is basically just a 2-mana 2/2 haste the vast majority of the time, with a tiny kicker effect to put +1/+1 counters on it, maybe. So I think this is actually our weakest 2-drop. So if there's any that we're not playing, it would be Bloodthirsty Adversary. But we might still play it just to have 7 2-mana cards. I think that would be viable. I'm going to play the Legion Warboss as an army in a can. If we get real aggro and we cut a couple lands, we don't really need that much card draw, so I'd rather play Showdown of the Scalds than Light Up the Stage. And I don't think I want both, so I'm just going to ignore that. Forge is kind of slow. It gives us some resiliency against decks that have just a ton of board wipes, but they're going to be pretty bad in other matchups because they slow our deck down quite a bit. Something that doesn't immediately impact the board much, it just pokes for 1 and then 2 and then 3. Starts stacking up a lot later, but much slower than like dropping a Legion Warboss on turn 3 in terms of immediate impact on the game. So I do like it for resiliency against board wipes, but I think that'd be more of a best 2 out of 3 kind of thing we could do. Definitely going to play Hell Rider, that just, especially with cards like Legion Warboss and Adeline giving us multiple creatures off of the 1 card, we can stack up a lot of damage with this thing. And these are like quick finishers, the Hell Rider and the Town Razor Tyrant. I actually think I might even just not play the Planeswalkers at all, because they are going to stack up into a ton of impact on the game over time, but these cards are just going to end it quickly. At least cut Elspeth for Hell Rider. Maybe I don't cut like Wandering Emperor for Town Razor Tyrant. I think I'm still just going to do it here, which is kind of crazy to me because they are really high impact, super powerful cards, but the best thing about Planeswalkers is the consistent value you get over the course of the game, getting an effect from them every single turn the longer the game goes on. With our 4-drops and 5-drops, we kind of want the game to be ending 1 or 2 turns after we play them, and if the game ends that quickly and the only thing we get out of the Wandering Emperor is 2 triggers, it's not that crazy. What makes Planeswalkers crazy is that they sit there and just keep doing things like 5 turns in a row and just accrue so much value over time, so I think it's probably a little less important for this kind of deck. So I'm going to cut those out and then try to make room for Showdown of the Scald, so we have at least 1 piece of massive card draw, but that's probably it here. Like, Lorehold Command, very powerful and flexible, but it's also 5 mana, which is a lot. Older Ravenguard, I'm happy for you, or sorry that happened, but I'm not reading all that. And then Mishra's Command, a lot of mana, can be a big finisher. It's definitely an option. Like, there are several builds we could make with this deck, but I think this is the build that I want to kind of make, which is just getting really aggressive and trying to close that game out quickly. So with the way our curve is looking now, if we drop like the AO the Dawn Sky here, puts us a little low on creatures, 15 here, but that's not counting Kumano Faces Kakazan or Wedding Announcement, so that makes it still basically 17, which is pretty good. Could still use 1 or 2 more. As for the average mana cost, it's 2.5, and I think that is counting a Miria's Call, which would be insane. Let's see. 2.5, if I cut a Miria's Call, 2.3. Yeah, wow. All right, that average mana cost is nice and low. We could certainly cut some lands. especially because Amelia's Call basically counts as a land. So I could just cut 2 lands, call it a deck. Then I've got a 15 land deck that has a 16th land when necessary with Amelia's Call as Amelia the Skyclave. I think that would be pretty reasonable. But I might be interested in cutting a land for a creature or cutting like a removal spell for a creature, because there's 17 creatures in this deck, but there are a lot of cards that are very contingent on playing a lot of creatures. We have like Maul the Skyclaves that doesn't do anything unless we have a creature down, and a lot of cards that really benefit from having other creatures, like we want to play Kumano and then we want to immediately cast a creature the next turn. These cards do nothing but protect our other creatures. This just like supplements our other creatures, making them bigger. I think cutting like a removal spell for a creature could be good here, and maybe just cut the most expensive one. Not going to have a lot of removal for big creatures if I drop Touch the Spirit Realm, but I still have Ossification for that, and I have great removal for cheap creatures between Pillar and Enthusiasm. That keeps the removal curve pretty low, and then maybe like a well-timed Mana Tithe can help us out a lot. The thing I like about Mana Tithe quite a bit is that because it's only 1 mana, it's pretty easy to hold it up, especially with a curve like this. We can go 1-drop, 2-drop, and then turn 3 hold up a Mana Tithe while casting a 2-drop and still impacting the board. So I'm going to keep the Mana Tithe in here, I think, over the touch. I'm going to cut the touch and throw another creature in, I think. Although it could... I mean, again, that curve is insane. The average 2.3 is what it was saying before. If we don't count Amelia's Call. So, I mean... 15, essentially 16 lands, counting the call. I think that's the big thing here. I'm going to cut the Touch the Spirit Realm, but the final question, really, is land or a creature for that last card. So yeah, we'll cut that touch, we'll put a creature in for that. I guess it depends how good our creatures left are. We just have a Bloodthirsty Adversary. And Urbrask's Forge kind of counts as a creature. Yeah, I guess we don't really have great options to get more creatures into this deck. Could throw one of the Planeswalkers back in since they can produce creatures, or we could put a 5-drop back in. I guess at this rate, we could put the Touch the Spirit Realm back in and cut a land for a creature. Yeah, I don't think there's any universe where I'm going to cut Touch the Spirit Realm and a land to fit 2 more cards back into here, because there's just not great cheap creatures to throw in. But we'll cut one of the 2 and put 1 into the deck. Let's just really go ham on that 2-drop slot. Let's get the Bloodthirsty Adversary back into here. And I think I'm going to go ahead and cut a land for it here. We'll get a little bold with the mana base drop down to... essentially 15 lands. 14 straight up lands and 1 Amelia's Call. Kinda low, but looking at the curve, having so many 1 and 2 mana things to do, I think we can manage on that. Yeah, I think that'll be pretty reasonable, so... let's not drop Den of the Bugbear. Let's drop 1 land, and then see... how our colors pair up. 16 white cards, 11 red. We don't need double red until our 4-drops, but that has made our mana base a little more awkward. Because we definitely need double white, because Adeline and Skyclave are some of our better cards, especially Adeline. And we want to be casting her turn 3 every time. That is the other part that gets awkward about cutting lands, is that, like, not only am I lowering the amount of lands that I'm going to hit turn 3, turn 4 on average, just throughout the game, on average, I guess, but we're also reducing the quantity of our lowest represented color, which is kind of a big hit. Yeah, I'm just going to... we had like a 3-5 minute deliberation period here in the end, where I ended up cutting just a land for the, what is it called? Bloodthirsty Adversary, but I might put a land back in now that I'm remembering how many double reds and double whites we have. And if I'm cutting a land here, I'm at 8 white sources and 7 red. It's pretty low for double whites and double reds. I like going like 9-7 here, and then maybe even just cut Town Razor Tyrant, actually. I think that's probably reasonable. We cut Town Razor Tyrant so that we can go 9-7 split here. Have 9 white sources to hit that Adeline more consistently. Still have the 7 red to hopefully hit the second red when we have that Hell Rider. But when we don't have Hell Rider, we're pretty free on 7 red sources. That should be super fine for the rest of our red spells. We just need the 1 source. But hitting that double white is super important, so going up to 9 white sources. I guess 10 with Amiria's Call is the thing. So then that puts us right back to, we could still be on the 9-7 split, cutting a land here. But I guess this could put us to 9-8, which should make it pretty easy to hit Hellrider and Adeline most of the time. I have another land in this deck. Now let's do it. Let's actually go 9-8 here. 9 white sources, 8 red. A little bit high for red, being at 16 white cards and 10 red, but that Hellrider turn 4, this card does get significantly weaker the later we manage to play it, so hitting double red turn 4 anytime we draw Hellrider is pretty important. The just immediate impact of dropping that as our turn 4 play is huge, so I think I'm pretty down to clown with the 9-8 split here. And we'll call it a deck there. I would back to 10-7 because I really want to play Adeline on turn 3 as well. These are both really important to do, but we have more white cards and Adeline turn 3 versus slightly less red cards in Hellrider turn 4. We'll wait. We'll wait on Hellrider now, and then we'll go 10-7. Now we're calling it a deck, though. Alright, here's a look at our final deck list for today, and it is definitely my kind of deck. We are on Boros aggro here with tons of nice, cheap, aggressive creatures and a lot of great cheap removal spells, just all the stuff you want. We've got a ton of 2-drop cards to really profit off of cards like Clarion Spirit, so if we're casting 2 spells in 1 turn, we're also expanding our board state. Kumano Faces Kakuzan also benefits from a bunch of 2-drops, as we'll very consistently be getting a +1/+1 counter onto our second creature of the game. We've got kind of all the classics of mono red past, cards like Robber of the Rich to keep drawing cards, Magda to give us treasures to fuel our future plays, Firebrand to keep the blockers out of the way. We've got Aspirant and Adversary to kind of buff our board while we're expanding our board. We've got Adeline, Legion Warboss as armies in a can, and Hellrider as a huge finisher once we get a wide board state, just getting so much extra damage. We even have some ways to protect our really important cards with Giver of Runes and Selfless Savior to help protect Adeline and Hellrider and all those cards. And we've got some card draw with Showdown of the Scalds, Wedding Announcement, and of course the Great Removal, Touch of Spirit Realm, Ossification, Enthusiasm, Pillar of Flame, all that kind of stuff. Looks like a really sweet, really high quality Boros aggro deck with a super low curve. The one thing we're concerned about is if we ever stumble on mana, as we only have the 1 dual land, and we do have some double white cards and some double red cards. So the mana base could be pretty punishing at times. That might be a flaw of the deck, because curving out efficiently every turn is going to be incredibly important. So curving out and then just having 3 plains and a mountain and a Hellrider stuck in our hand could be a death sentence sometimes, but hopefully it doesn't come to that. We've got our fingers crossed a bit here, trying to get the right colors of lands, but other than that, incredible card quality here, and I'm super excited to see how it does as we head into the gameplay. We have been instantly punished by our mana base. I could still keep this because we've got turn 2 Aspirant, but we're also on the draw doing nothing turn 1, which makes the hand extra slow. Nothing turn 1, nothing turn 3. On the draw does mean we could hit a red source immediately and just go to the races, but it's not super likely. 7 red sources out of the 33 cards. I think I have to take the mulligan here. I'm not in love with it. Oh my god. Please not like this, Arena. We've got 10 white sources. And we hit the triple red hand now. We've got 10 out of the 33 or whatever cards that are white sources to hit 1. Mulligan to 5 is super rough. Probably have to just do it, but This is actually probably a more reasonable keep than our opening hand just because of the 10 white sources versus 7 red that we could draw into. I'm done with Arena. I'm not playing anymore after this game. We're gonna insta-scoop the draft. That is insane. I guess we lose. Oh my god. Another triple mountain hand. Alright, well. I guess I really jinxed myself at the end of the deck building today. When I was talking about hoping our mana base works out for us, because our mana base is statistically nowhere near this bad. I just thought I'd have to put that out there, because there is like a real possibility that we get stuck off of double red or double white cards, and we've got 3 of those, 2 double white, 1 double red. But a 10-7 split, realistically speaking, that's the only major mana issue we should have. I was not talking about the possibility of drawing 3 mono-colored hands in a row, 2 of which are led by the least likely color for us to hit. Our 7 in our 10-7 split. 2 mono-red hands here. So, I mean, this has just been devastating. We are starting this game off very far behind. A mono-colored 5-card hand. Yep, there's the 2-for-1 with Murderous Rider. You get to kill one of our creatures, then drop a nice lifelinker. Got the white source for the Aspirant now. Enthusiasm the Vran, but don't have to get too much larger to just not worry about the 2/2 body. The life drain's annoying, but I think I'd rather have Enthusiasm for something else, potentially. Playing against blue-black ninjas in Arena Cube, and now we're getting Virus Beetled after a Molda 5, thanks to Swarm Saboteur's alchemy nonsense. Ay, ay, ay. Showdown is a very good draw. That can help get us out of this. The Saboteur has Death Touch. If I Enthusiasm the Saboteur, I can Aspirant block the Vran as a 3/3. And then we can Showdown next turn. Because then we know they're not going to have more Virus Beetles to make us discard the Showdown at least. This should keep damage off of us here, unless they have more removal. Which I think if they had removal for Aspirant, they would have just killed it earlier. Alright, yeah, keeps the damage off of us. We hit a Bloodthirsty Adversary. We're 1 mana off from kicking that, but it will work since we have an Enthusiasm, so we'll play the Showdown. Hope to hit some lands, so I can play land for turn here. Did hit some lands, and I'll have 6 mana up next turn. So I could cast all 3, but I think I'd rather save Adversary, so we're going to play Ossification and Firebrand next turn. Tap land for our opponent. That is their first red source. So the fact that they didn't cycle it means they probably do have some kind of red card coming up. I don't think that's enough information to really play any differently, but can keep it in mind, at least. So, these cards are going to be gone at the end of this turn, so we need to play Firebrand and Ossification. Let's play Firebrand first, so we can put +1/+1 counters onto Firebrand instead of putting all our eggs into just the Aspirant baskets. But then let's ossify probably the Murderous Rider. The Vran is very annoying. But if Murderous Rider dies, get it back into their deck and all that, maybe I should still hit Vran. So it would be a long time until they redraw a Murderous Rider at the bottom of their library. Yeah, probably stop the life drain. But we definitely don't hit the Virus Beetle. Okay. I'm worried enough to hold Aspirant back here. They've got a Mutavault they can activate and they'd have 5 power. It's probably not worth it. We can start attacking next turn very freely, very easily. So we'll wait a turn here. Might even cycle my Sunbaked Canyon, sacrifice it to draw a card. Okay, well that's absolutely filthy. Agent of Treachery arrives. I mean, they probably steal the Aspirant, because then they just keep making the Murderous Rider bigger every turn until they have a ridiculously big lifelinker. Yep. At least I get to flashback Enthusiasm and kill the Rider next turn. But now we have to deal with Illuminarch Aspirants. Or that is going to get to us. So I do think I need to cycle this Sunbaked Canyon to try to find something. I actually don't know if we have anything left to clear out Aspirant, because our main card that could have done it was Ossification, which we obviously exiled to the Showdown of the Scalds. So we're going to kick an adversary and Enthusiasm the Rider, probably. Let's be 2 spells here, 2 counters onto the Firebrand. You shut off the Aspirant as a blocker at least. And they'll have no lifelink. They have 3 power over there. I don't need to make Firebrand bigger, so I'm going to put the counter on Adversary. Spread our board state out a little bit here. I don't think we're likely to win because we can't really deal with this Luminarch Aspirants. But we're actually somehow still not completely out of this game. There are some cards we could hit that might just provide enough damage. If our opponent just like misses, just hits some lands a few turns in a row. They have some real poor draws. Could get back out of this hole that we've kind of just started the game with our mulligans. It's not looking great. The Edict's not horrible for us though, because we just sack the adversary. I do take 8 damage to do that. Actually 10 damage if they just use Mutavault. But not lethal. Alright, they're going to play it safe, just hold Mutavault back. We're down to 4. Find Adeline, that's a good one. That's a good one. Don't know it's good enough. 7 mana, I can play Adeline and Warboss, probably what we gotta do. Buff Firebrand once, +2/+2, it's not gonna change anything. Well, play these both pre-combat, so we get their triggers. They can only kill one of our attacking 1/1s. Alright, actually they can activate Mutavault and kill both of them. Well, no, because the Firebrand is gonna stop Siphoner from blocking. We're gonna have to chump next turn with the Warboss. But I think there's still probably like a card or two that we might be able to top deck and lethal them if we survive. Because they're down to 10 taking the Firebrand swing, which is huge. Oh wait, no, they can just attack with Mutavault and go wide and kill us. Well, technically should not have attacked with Firebrand then. But if we're not pushing damage into them, I don't even think I'm finding any winning lines. Plus they top-decked Grasp, so we would have been dead anyway without attacking. Because I could only have had one more blocker up. And they would have killed it. Well, rough game from the get-go there. We started that game with a horrifically low chance of winning. Held on for quite some time, which is impressive. Obviously, made myself dead on board the last turn. In hindsight, it wouldn't have mattered since they top-decked Grasp, but with the information I had at the time, I should have realized that I was putting myself dead on board there. I think I still had the right idea where the only way we were going to be winning that game is if we find some crack throughs with the Firebrand to maybe just like cheese lethal out of nowhere. Otherwise, the Aspirant's just grinding it out in their favor. So still the right idea that we needed to be getting some damage in proactively, but obviously the turn that I was going to lethal myself to do it, I shouldn't have done it. So I don't think we could have done much better there. Again, just starting at a very, very high disadvantage. We had to mulligan to 5 and still had a mono-colored hand third time in a row. So hopefully we just get all the bad luck out of the way game 1 and we can find some solid mana in the future, but that's another mono-colored hand with a double white card. We also don't have any of our like 10 1 or 2 mana creatures here, so we can't even profit off the Maul of the Skyclaves if I do hit a white source. Plus we're not getting aggressive and making the most of being on the play, so this is a definite mulligan. A monocolored hand doesn't have, again, any of our 10 1 or 2 drop creatures, just several issues with it. This hand is not like way better, but it is a good amount better. It's not like an excellent hand, but it's a good one. I think we get rid of a Miria's Call, because that's just going to be a land that we shoot ourselves in the face to play, because we're definitely going to play it as a land at this rate. So I might as well just keep a Plains in my hand over that. All right. Let's get things rolling here. Love being on the play. That part I'm already a huge fan of. And we get the Robber the Rich to trigger turn 1. If they don't have cheap removal, this Robber can do some gross things. This could legitimately draw some cards here. All right, do they have the cheap removal, or does the Robber just get on in? See, I don't have any instants to hold up here, so let's just send the attack in before we do anything. Well, if we make it to 5 mana, we can cast their own Archangel Avis in against them. That could be good. Unkicked adversary, a little sad, but still good to expand our board state here. There's a Briarbridge tracker, we can apparition that while expanding our board state. Still have a Pillar Flame up. It's not an instant though, so it doesn't really matter. Yep, I have to kill that before I attack. Maybe it's better to ossify it, because then if I hit a 2-drop I can play it. But we don't know what the mana cost of whatever I'm going to hit is going to be. So let's find out. It's a 3-drop. Alright, so it would not have mattered. It is better to have apparitioned there. Suppose we could have saved 1 point of life by playing the Plains pre-combat. Alright, well, there's Wrath of God, which is definitely bad. Touch the Spirit Realm here. I suppose that's the other benefit of Ossification, potentially. Still have 1 creature to play post-Wrath. Does nullify that Robber the Rich value we got. Rough. Yeah, I'm not really doing anything here, am I? I guess I gotta crack the Canyon. Just ossify the 3/3. Oof. I mean, board wipe probably gets us here. This hand was not super resilient. We could have played a little better against the board wipe, going for the ossify instead of the apparition. But then I'd have an apparition in hand here against an empty board, so we'd probably still just be passing the turn right now. Either way, board wipe looks potentially game-ending. Warboss is a great draw. That is a card to reestablish a board state after a board wipe. Even if they have another 1-for-1 removal spell, we get to keep chipping away with one little goblin token. There's an Essica for a 1-4 blocker. Warboss is already fine against that. Lauren of the Third Path. Blow up the ossification, but we exile the tokens, so that doesn't matter. We hit an Usher of the Fallen. I hit for 5 damage if I kill both their creatures, but then I don't have a Pillar of Flame anymore. Pillar of Flame is exciting. Feel like I should still do it. Put them to 1 here. Again, the part that I'm a little sad about here is that we're putting them to dead to our burn spell by casting our burn spell, so we don't have it anymore to shoot them in the face with. But if they don't have a second board wipe, they got to get 3 blockers or removal spells down here at 1 life. Are they on Team Settle the Wreckage over here? What's going on? Adversary's a fantastic draw, because now we hit 1 land and we just Pillar Flame their face again. I guess we play around Settle the Wreckage. Leave 1 lethal attacker for the future. Okay, so Nightpack Ambusher. Settle the Wreckage would make me exile all attacking creatures. That's what we're playing around here. Alright, just a Nightpack Ambusher, not going to be enough. That Legion Warboss was an incredibly pivotal draw there. If we didn't hit that, I think we were just scooping to 1 Wrath of God, really. But Warboss is such a great way to, as we saw there, get just a whole fresh new board state after a board wipe if your opponent doesn't kill it. And they had a lot of cards in hand, but did not have a single removal spell to just clear out the Warboss nice and quick there. So pretty lucky stuff there to be resilient to that Wrath of God. Does make up for some of the awkward hands we've had. The first 4 opening hands we've had, I guess, makes up for that a little bit. We are 1-1 now as we head into game 3. Well, we have both of our colors. We're on the draw again. Always much rather be on the play. Basically anytime, no matter what deck you're playing, no matter what format you're playing, 90% of the time you just want to be on the play. Unless you're like Legacy Dredge or something and you need to discard a card, or Legacy Reanimator, I don't know. Something weird like that. But especially when you're aggro. You super want to be on the play. Uh-oh, blue-white. Uh-oh. I might play a little bit around a board wipe this time. We see blue-white into Cold Steel Heart for white mana, so not even a 3rd color. Just straight blue-white control for now. Luckily, Arena's going to make it real easy for me to play around a board wipe by just making sure I have 1 land. I cannot overcommit to the board even if I wanted to. Just don't have the mana to do it. There we go. None of the creatures that I could drop here have haste, so let's just poke them. And then probably just use Usher the Fallen's boast ability, honestly. So this is already a board state that has to be dealt with, even if I'm not putting a 3-1 on the board. Why would you auto-tap like that? I didn't think I was going to have to manually tell Arena to go white and a generic. Oh, never mind. This is a different pain land. It just always shoots me in the face. Okay. I got mixed up. I haven't actually played with these since I don't do any like non-arena sets. Never drafted that format, but I certainly drafted a lot of Brothers War, which has the ones that are like they can tap for a generic or you pay the life to get the colored mana. So I got them mixed up. That's kind of rough. They fully kill my human here if I choose that, and that's probably what I'm supposed to choose. I guess I could choose etching and replay it, and that's kind of fun. That's kind of fun. That's kind of cute. I'm kind of sad Apparition does not exile tokens. It's a bit of a bummer. I'm still going to just kill the human and get extra damage in here. Top deck a land, but I think the play is still going to be Enthusiasm, the blocker, and hit for 5. I guess I get to hold up a Mana Tithe, which is cute. Yeah, all around, our one land keep has worked out real well. I guess we don't know what's in their hand, but it does feel nice to just be like under committed to the board here and just have 2 creatures. It's like even if they board wipe us, it's like, alright, I still got gas. I ate Taco Bell earlier. It's bubbling up. They're just going to pass turn. They're just going to settle us. They've got the 5 mana to pay for Mana Tithe, so we get settled, we get settled. I can play into a settle and get 2 for 1 tier, that's fine. Got the creatures to make a new board state. Shark Typhoon. That is much less fine, and it's not technically a spell, so I can't Mana Tithe it. Part of what makes Shark Typhoon so busted, because it makes it very good in control mirrors. Ah, that's unfortunate. I wish that were a spell so bad. Be a great Mana Tithe opportunity. Would have had just a sick attack here. So now I guess we're probably just going to Pillar of Flame the token. Do I want to boast? Or just cast a Firebrand here? Cast Firebrand, I still have Adversary and Apparition after that. They're going to go to 6 life? I would be pretty interested in putting them to just straight dead on board. Even if it plays into a board wipe a little. And I still get to hold Mana Tithe up, but got a good amount of mana, so most board wipes will get around Mana Tithe at this point. Most of them are 4 mana. They've got 6 now. If they just try to play blockers, they're gonna die, because we can shut off a blocker and kill another one with Apparition. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. They can -3 and slow down one of our creatures. If I tithe this, they only have 1 mana up. Or if I tithe this, they have 0 mana up in the future. But the odds of them doing something for 1 mana aren't super high, and if they do, I can just tithe whatever they do instead. Alright, so they're going to bounce the Usher. Feels like I have to just let Teferi chill. It's 4 mana to buff this. Just put them to 1 and hold up Mana Tithe. Still have 2 creatures in hand to be resilient. Probably.
You know what? I'm not done.
So we don't have direct burn anymore because Pillar of Flame's in our grave, but if we hit the vampire that can flash it back, we'll kill them. If we hit... Make Firebrand cost 4 mana now, that's annoying. If we hit Hellrider, we'll kill them. Mana tithing them when they have 2 mana up is really not going to do anything because they have 2 plus the 2 from Teferi. Alright, Clarion Spirit. That's quite the draw. That is quite the draw. Okay, so now I can Clarion Spirit into Intrepid Adversary holding up Mana Tithe. That'll be 3 creatures. All of which are lethal, because anything with at least 1 power is lethal right now. Could also play Apparition, but I don't really want to Apparition a Nightclub Bouncer. I don't think Mana Tithe is looking super good in this matchup. Mainly because that Shark Typhoon just really ruined Mana Tithe's day. Alright, OG Counterspell, can't stop that. But we got the Clarion Spirit trigger at least, since they didn't just Counterspell the Spirit.
Let's skip to the good part.
Okay. Already presenting lethal on board, but I can present mega lethal by trying to Apparition it up. I don't have enough white sources to play Apparition and Usher and still have Mana Tithe up. Yeah, I basically can't hold Mana Tithe up this turn if I'm double spelling in any way. I feel like I should be double spelling. Alright. Let's clear the path even more if we can. I guess I could hold the Tithe up for now. That's disgusting. Oh my god. I just get around a removal and Nightclub Bouncer a creature. Well, basically the only out now is just top decking Burn and shooting their face. Alright, Mana Tithe isn't countering anything. I guess I could crack the Canyon instead of playing the Usher. Why is there a revealed Usher in their hand? They are not running Usher the Fallen, that's just an arena visual glitch. We do force them to play a removal spell if we drop Usher here, so I guess I'll do that. Play a removal spell or a creature or something, or we're threatening to attack them with 3 creatures next turn. But I think our outs are literally just Hellrider. No, Hellrider and the flashback vampire. If we can get into a combat that's going to force them to spend some mana so they don't have enough for a counterspell, and then we just jam one of those down, then that will be the only way to win here. Key to the Archive. They'll have 5 mana up after Teferi triggers. Still plenty for counter spells. But our current board state forces them to do something with their mana. Before blockers. Or before damage, at least. Come on, top deck. That ain't it, Chief. Drop Spirit, hold up Mana Tithe. So that if I do Mana Tithe, I get another creature out of the deal. And then if we don't Mana Tithe, we just crack the Canyon during their end step. Well, I suppose we could alternatively boast with the Usher here, potentially. Threaten that lethal. It's not horrific for us, because that does actually just trade off with one of our creatures. But two of these are going to just flat out die. Okay. Should I boast? Or should I hold up Tithe? I think I should boast. I guess I could have tied the Mastermind just to get a 1/1 flyer. So if we find a way to get through Restoration Angel, that just kills them. Electrolyze the Clarion Spirit and draw a card. Approach to the Second Sun's going to end it for us. Our list of outs is now 0. Because we have nothing that is going to shoot them for 8 in 1 turn. So 1 and 2. Frustratingly close game there again. If we hit land slightly faster, all we needed to do was find 1 more point of damage. So maybe there was a slightly more aggressive line somewhere. That's what we could have changed. Obviously, I can't make Arena give me lands faster, but we might have been able to find 1 extra point of damage in there somewhere. All right. Here we are for game number 4. A really rough start for what I consider to be one of the best decks that we have ended up with so far. Just had some horrific luck round 1 with a forced mulligan to 5 into keeping a monocolored hand still. And then round 3, kept the 1-lander and just slightly didn't get aggressive enough. Really, really close generally. But we ended up, I think I play Magda here for treasure. We ended up literally 1 damage off, so sad stuff there. So we're playing against some kind of like 5-color? Nope, blue, white, black. That's everything we're seeing so far, so probably pretty controlling. There's a Phyrexian Flesh Gorger. Menace and Lifelink. So a 3-power Lifelinker here. Pretty horrendous deal for me. That is going to be nigh impossible to race. I could just drop them all, the Skyclaves, onto the Magda, get a treasure, have the treasure up for Mana Tithe. Or I just drop an Adeline, make Magda pro-black, and get through to get the mana up for treasure or Mana Tithe. But then I'm not holding Giver of Runes up when I have an Adeline on board, which feels bad. I feel like I maul the Skyclaves here. This lets me hold up Giver of Runes and Mana Tithe. And then I can play Adeline next turn while holding up Giver of Runes to protect her. Plus, an Adeline on this board kind of just lets them gain 3, because they just block the 1/1. Gain an extra 3 for free. Kaito Shizuki. Well, they've got the one up. Manatithe is getting the underperformer award. I don't care what you say. Manatithe was horrific last game, and now it has just done nothing again. I think it's at like a really solid win rate on 17 lands overall, but it has been horrible for me. Alright, let's get the Adeline down while they're mostly taps out. Keep the Giver runes up. But send in the Magda, get our treasure, get our 1-1 hitting them. Now I can drop an Usher of the Fallen and still have a Manatithe up. It's a little wider than I'd like to be against a board wipe, but they have at least one creature dying to the wipe as well. It's not terrible. Plus, maybe they only have the 4 mana. They need double white for most board wipes. They'd have to go Plains board wipe, and one of the board wipes is 5 mana. We could Manatithe that one. Oh. That's gross. Get a 7/5 Menace lifelink? Well, now if they board wipe, they board wipe, because I have to Manatithe that. There's no way we can let them have a 7/5 Menace lifelink. Well, kind of feels like now we lose to a board wipe and we win if they don't board wipe. Those are the two directions the game can go. It's not a board wipe. It's big, but it's not a board wipe. They don't even have good attacks here because I can just double block with Adeline and Usher and give Usher pro black.
No secret I can't uncover.
So they don't kill any of my creatures. Yep, so they just pass the turn. Audio glitch here. Sounds like something is still on the stack. Alright, weird. I guess we'll be dealing with that. Oh, Stonecoil's got reach. That's annoying. Okay, I'm not dealing with that. That's really egregious. Let's send in an Adeline. Could just clear out Kaito. Stonecoil is protection from multicolored. It would trade into Adeline. I don't love that. Oh, Giver can give protection from colorless. That's kind of crazy. I don't know why that's a thing, but it's a thing. Protection from colorless. Okay, they gained their 3 life, but now we hold up a Restoration Angel. And then I could just move my Maul over next turn, I suppose. So Kaito draws a card, discards a card. What does the ultimate even do? They deal combat damage to a player. They search their library for any blue or black creature put on the battlefield. Spooky. So here's Ugin. So we'll Restoration Angel around the Ugin minus ability here. Yep, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be some good revenge for how hard we got Restoration Angeled last game. We tried to clear out a blocker and they Restoration Angeled and it hadn't entered the battlefield effect too. It was like super gross. They're at 17 now. Adeline's already big enough to attack into the Gorger. The Angel can send in. The Magda can send in. I guess I could just attack with everybody as is. 4, 5, 6, 7 plus 6. I can't lethal them by giving this protection from black or something like that, so I'll just make my 3 chill attacks here, I think. Let them keep their planeswalkers. Suppose since we don't lethal them, we might as well clear out the planeswalkers and we still probably just lethal them next turn anyway. And if we don't, we're about to draw 4 extra cards to play next turn, so we'll be fine. I could pro black so they don't gain any life on that block, but I'd rather just still have Giver runes up. for if they try to play any removal or anything. There's the Forsaken Crossroads on white. Get that Kaito Shizuki looting, draw a card, discard a card. Trying to find that board wipe. There's a Giver of Runes of their own. And pass the turn. This looks like they're probably super duper dead. I've got nothing to recast with Adversary, and I have to cast it now. I'll just play it, put a counter wherever. Have to cast Enthusiasm now as well, so we'll just cast it, kill Giver of Runes, put a counter wherever. And, just Luminarch Aspirant, and this is probably lethal, but might as well stack the extra damage on to make it super duper mega, almost definitely lethal. Now we're chill unless they settle the wreckage. And even then we're still probably fine, since that'd be the last card in their hand. Oop. First strike damage. I apologize, opponent. I'm playing with 0 audio. I did not realize that I just sat there after first strike damage for like 5 seconds. Alright, we do find another victory here. We are now 2-2. See if we can't rally into a pretty solid run this time around for our very solid Boros aggro deck. Alright, well I love this. We are on the play. Love to see that. Gonna get nice and aggro. We've got both our colors, some cheap removal, the Usher, giving us the perfect curve of Usher into Boast into Legion Warboss. Two mana up for our opponent. They're on black, red. There's a Bone Crusher Giant for the Usher. That is really good. The 2 for when you get off that card is absurd. We've got the Enthusiasm to burn that away in the future. But very nice Bone Crusher Giant for our opponent. Here it is. Ooh, drawn to Hellrider if I just want to do 1,000,000 damage immediately, but I think I'd rather get the Bone Crusher Giant out of the way so I'm not losing any creatures here. And if they just play some blockers, then next turn is the easy just Hellrider and probably even get close to lethal. So they're down to 10 now. Wild. That'll be a 4/3 Hellrider. If I hit another red source, then I can play Hellrider and Pillar. That'd be super gross. No, come on. Now I have to Pillar Flame Valky, and then I need to draw another red source. I just don't get to play Hellrider that turn. Dang. Well, now I can Ossification and Pillar and clear out both blockers. Hit for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Not lethal, but then I'm going to have a Hellrider in my hand, so probably worth it. I mean, it's definitely worth it to kill the Valky. The Null Priest, maybe we just let Warboss trade. Feel like I don't. Alright, they're just going to concede. They don't have any great follow-ups here. Still wanted to try to play it as tight as possible, just in case they had like a Gix's command coming up or something like that. Maybe we need to think about, but our opponent knows what's in their hand, and they realize they've got no solutions to this problem. So we are going to be 3-2 now, getting at least an average run, no matter what. Here we are for Game 6, on the play again. We love it. None of our 1-drops, which is actually a little sad considering we have Robber of the Rich. There is a possibility it won't be drawing us cards, but for now we're good. They did not play a 1-drop, so we do get a card off of it. And I suppose since they're on the draw, even if they did play a 1-drop, we'd be getting 1 card, I think. So what do we hit? A 4-drop creature. That's not going to happen, especially since they have the removal for the Robber. Sad day, sad day. Let's play Giver and Adversary, and Restoration Angel is actually kind of interesting here, because if we end up with a ton of mana later, we could flicker the Adversary and actually put some counters on it. If they play a Courser, I think we're just going to put a Maul on it and just hold up Giver of Runes to protect it, and just try to hit them 4 times with a lying 5/3 first strike lifelinker. That's a way to win a game. Just poke them with it 4 times in a row. Ooh, they revealed an Emrakul off of Courser Crewfix, by the way, so we do need to kill them somewhat quickly. Emrakul is not going to be very easy to beat if they get to cast it. And Courser is getting them some life, so it's actually going to take 4 more swings if they play just 1 more land this game with Courser on the board. Plus, they've got an Ornithopter to chump block with now. And that helps with Emrakul's Delirium? Hold up, this Emrakul's gonna be way too cheap. It's an Enthusiasm. We can clear out the Courser or the Ornithopter with that. Feel like I'd rather clear out the Courser to stop their life gain, but they're gonna have a sorcery, an artifact, and a creature in their grave for Delirium. 3 card types is going to be 10 mana. They've got 5 already. Mana ramp on top of their deck. We definitely kill Courser here, I think. And then, I guess they'll have an enchantment as well, so Emrakul's only going to cost 9 mana? God, the odds of us getting Emrakul are just way too high. We can't really do anything about it. I can't, like, exile their cards. Don't think I'm playing Amiria's Call as a land right now. Disgusting. Say goodbye to Giver of Runes. Okay, unless they put all 3 on Adversary. Interesting. Well, that works well. Now I've got a Clarion Spirit, which doesn't really do anything. I think I would rather just keep going for the 3-turn kill with Adversary. We're just going to have to keep Giver of Runesing the Adversary when the Inferno Titan attacks. Okay, at this point with a Clarion Spirit in hand, I think I will play Emiria, the Shattered Skyline. In case I draw like a 3-drop, I can play Spirit into the 3-drop next turn. At this point, there's basically no way that we're going to make it to 7 mana, because that would take at least 3 more turns if I don't play Emiria as a land. And if the game takes 3 more turns, they're just going to kill us with an Emrakul. Alright, they figured out the Inferno Titan play, which is kill Giver of Runes. I think I'm gonna give Pro Red to Adversary. And then let Giver of Runes die to play around green removal. Because we kill them in 2 attacks. Although maybe I should Restoration the Giver, because then if Inferno Titan gets another attack, they still kill Adversary later. It's a hard choice. Yeah. I guess if they have green removal post-combat, they will kill the Adversary here. But come to think of it, having the repeatable way to protect the Adversary is important. So I know I can attack with it 2 times in a row, potentially. Alright, it's not a green removal spell. Thragtusk, stop with the life gain, green deck. Well, we get a Magda trigger here. Or we get a Clarion Spirit trigger off of Magda. How much does this Emrakul cost? 1, 2, 3, 4... 9 mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just no Emrakul next turn. Thank God. We still kill them if they can't clear out all these flyers. And even if they clear out the Adversary, now I can just put the equipment onto Clarion Spirit or Magda or somebody. Obviously the game doesn't look very close, but again, if an Emrakul resolves, it's pretty bad for us. At least we don't have any cards in our hand where they can cast our removal spells against our own creatures. But they could get a chump attack in and equip my equipment somewhere stupid and stuff like that. Have a 13/13, but They do not have the mana for Embercool, and they don't have a way to clear out enough of our board to not die on the crackback. So we are now 4-2. Very nice recovery after some quick losses in our first few games. Getting at least a slightly above average run now. Still not breaking even though. The Arena Cubes, unlike Premier Drafts, have to get 5 wins to break even instead of 4 to be at right around the break even point. So hopefully we grab at least one more win before we head out for the day, but we'll see how well we can do as we head into round number 7. Okay, on the play again. Pretty lucky with the play-draw differential lately. Just being on the play a bunch these last few games. Pretty happy with that. Get our Giver runes down. So once we drop a Legion War Boss, it's just auto-protected. Drop our Selfless Savior and then send the Giver runes in. I think I've missed like an attack or two with Giver runes in the past because I always forget that it can't protect itself like Mother of Runes can. Alright, well, kept the 2-lander, did not hit land 3, so we can't play War Boss or Maul, which is actually a pretty massive bummer for this hand. Because turn 3 was going to be a pivotal turn, dropping a War Boss here. Luckily our opponent doesn't do anything till turn 3, but it is something that's too big for our Pillar of Flame to kill, so that's not good for me. Drop the War Boss here and just get the chump attack in. And they can't really do anything with the Facebreaker. I guess they could. But I can double block and give one of my creatures pro-red. Whichever one they try to kill, based on how they order blocks. Okay, well now they can attack in. Just get to tap down 2 of my board. The Evangel's insane. Some of these alchemy cards are just stupid. 2 mana 3/1, tap a creature, and you just conjure infinite copies into your hand for the turn. You can just, if you have 4 mana, you get to play 2 3/1s and tap 2 creatures. If you have 6 mana, you get to do 3 of them. And they're not even like temporary copies. Those 3/1s stay forever. I think the Sigardian Evangel is the highest win rate white card in the cube. There's no point in even tapping the Giver of Runes for its ability. Because I can't... That's got Menace anyway, and I'll have 1 blocker up, so... We get hit then. And at least they're only 1 toughness, so the 1/1 things we get are going to be fine against them. The 1/1 gobos. Hell Rider! That's a draw. They block Hell Rider and War Boss, and we save one of the 2. We can save both of them, actually. Yeah, whatever. I'm getting aggro. We would have been in a really good spot if we didn't miss a land drop here, but the fact that we hit 2 in a row after missing one is still pretty nice. Still think we're in a good position here, but we would have been in an incredible one if I just hit every land drop. That would have been nuts. So we trade Savior into one of these and get a free kill on the other one with Giver of Runes. All right. I like how the board state looks. But now the shields are down. We do not have Giver runes up. So if they have the cheap removal, they can still clear out the Hellrider and the War Boss. That is not cheap removal. Happy to see Devils play instead of like a 1 mana and 2 mana burn spell to kill both our creatures, so all they get to do is just kill the Hellrider, which is beautiful for me. And now I get to put a Maul onto the War Boss. Could also just exile the Facebreaker, but I like getting the War Boss up to 4 power to make its Mentor even better. Should be pretty nasty. And this lets us keep the Touch the Spirit Realm for something else. Whoop. Now we get to send in with 2 creatures that are too big for them to kill. Hit them for 7 and they just kill my 1/1. And then I can Pillar of Flame the Facebreaker post-combat here. I could also save Pillar of Flame to maybe hit them for the last couple points of damage, but I like clearing all these blockers here. They're a Boros aggro deck just like us. They should not be playing a board wipe. I guess they could be, but Devil's Play would be the only one I think they might run. I don't think they would just play straight Wrath of God in this kind of deck. Elite Spellbinder. Alright, well, Touch the Spirit Realm costs 1 million mana, but that's fine. Because I have 1 million mana. I've got all 5 that would cost. There's an Adeline, and I think that's game. And I could even just pro-white the War Boss and insta-win. So yeah, they are going to scoop them up. That is our 5th win. Excellent recovery this draft. We are now happy with whatever happens, getting all the gold that we spent on the draft back out of the event, as well as the random rare rewards. So super sweet Arena Cube draft this time around, but see if we can't get a little more gravy on those mashed potatoes, a little more icing on the cake as we head into game number 8. Uh-oh. The mana base is back. It's catching back up to us. Mono white lands, mono red spells. That's a mulligan. Mono red lands. 2 red spells. One of which is Robber of the Rich when we've taken a mulligan. I think I should keep this and probably get rid of the 2-drop white card, because that's going to be the biggest bummer if we miss on it. But Touch the Spirit Realm, if I don't hit my white stars till turn 6, Touch the Spirit Realm is still going to be good. Maybe we keep Aspirant over Maul. Those are the 2 cards really competing. Which one of these do we ditch? I think we just get rid of the Aspirant and just focus up on the red creatures here. And if I hit a white source, cool, we get to supplement the red creatures, just make them a little bigger. Well, if I literally just hit the white source turn 1, I think Aspirant would have been better than Maul. Blue-red spells over there, they just drop a 2-mana 2/1 prowess. Hit an Usher of the Fallen, so let's jam out. If I jam out the Robber, I'm not even hitting them with it, so we drop the Firebrand, and then next turn we play the Robber of the Rich and use Firebrand to shut off their blocker so that the Robber can get its trigger, potentially. But blue-red spells can have a lot of really cheap instants and sorceries, 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana cards. So I don't know if we're going to have less cards in hand than them. I don't know how likely that is. Plus they just have all their mana up, so they're probably just going to counter the Robber, but we still got to try. I don't have a better proactive play than Robber here. Futurist Spell Thief. They're going to put a copy of it into their hand. That's pretty annoying. Guess they could copy our Robber. Or sorry, they can... What am I talking about? They can trade with our Robber if I attack in. But if we hit a 1-drop off the top of their deck, it might still be worth the attack. Yeah, Firebrand doesn't shut off a creature unless it has less power than Rada's. It doesn't shut off Tide. I'd probably just play the Usher and pass and try to trade our 1-mana 2/1 into their Robber of the Rich here. Their Robber is going to be a lot weaker than ours, though, because their hand is much bigger right now. But, again, maybe they have those cheap spells and they can turn that around quickly. So there's the Robber. And a third path Iconoclast. Alright, so we're tied on cards in hand, so Robert doesn't do anything. And they're just going to send in with everybody. That's interesting to me. So I can just, if I want, I can just take this and then kill the Iconoclast and hit them with everybody. So I can Enthusiasm the Iconoclast, so if I hit a 1-drop or maybe even a 2-drop, I can crack back at them. I feel like even though it's more damage to the Spell Thief here, I should trade into the Robber of the Rich so they can't get any potential card draw off of that later. But I think we're cool with this game just being like 2 ships passing in the night, just no blocks ever. We're going to start on the back foot here, but Robert can turn that around, especially if we hit more just cheap removal. I don't even have to kill Iconoclast pre-combat because of Firebrand. Oh my god, but I do to trigger the Robber. Oh my god, I'm so stupid. I guess it doesn't matter too much here, because their hand is small enough now that I would have had to cast 2 spells to trigger Robber of the Rich anyway. So we would have just exiled the card for later, but that could still matter, because then maybe it's something that I would want to cast next turn when I attack with it again. So that was loose. We should have played Savior Enthusiasm, main phase 1. Completely forgot about the hand size differential there. I think we do kill the Iconoclast. Oh, I also could have used... Okay, this I think matters less, because we're probably just sacking the Savior anyway, but we probably should have played Savior after the Enthusiasm to make it bigger. Might be worth it to bank the Enthusiasm's +3/+0 trigger for our next creature. But yeah, that was the sloppiest turn of the draft for sure. Sequencing could have been much better there. Play those 2 spells pre-combat, probably supposed to play Enthusiasm into Savior and just put the extra power onto Savior. Even though it's a more expendable creature, I don't have more creatures coming up. Oh my god. Nightclub Bouncer is such a gross card. Every blue deck that we've drafted has played it, and it has always been egregiously powerful, and yeah, every time we play against it, it just completely wrecks souls. Thing is good. So we're down to 5 now. I think the Bouncer just like does us in here. I have to get like fully on blocks without the Savior trading into the Abbot. Still only cast 1 spell this turn. Play Savior as a 3/1 and then just go trade, be fully on blocks, but then I'm just falling behind losing because I'm down on cards. Also just kind of falling behind losing either way. Just exile the Spell Thief now. Flame Stoker, that's going to be a draw 4 for them pretty soon. Warzone Duplicator, basically another Nightclub Bouncer. That card is also incredibly good. You bounce a creature and draw a copy of it into your hand. Main thing we learned for our final game of this draft is that the bounce cards are insanity. Alright, I'm going to go out on my own terms. We are not turning this game around at this point. So we'll just pay the 3 life. Well, that game felt super, super bad for a couple reasons. Obviously, I'm super bummed out to have played really poorly that one turn. That is always a huge bummer. Because like you always like realize right afterwards, just like, that was terrible sequencing. Why did I do that? Why did I not put 2 and 2 together there? So that was a bummer. Sucks to play super sloppy like that. And then normally it would be like, well, on the plus side, it didn't matter. We were super dead anyway. But to die to 2 bounce spells in a row, it's kind of a frustrating loss too. Not even like a super fun or cool way to lose. Just get bounced. So, pretty big bummer of a final game there, but overall, I think we did pretty great in this draft. I think the deck itself is pretty excellent, pretty happy with how I drafted. And most of how I played, I think, was super reasonable. Obviously, that one turn in that last game was pretty horrible. Had some other misplays as well, but nothing too tremendously bad. Most of our losses were, I think, more just RNG based, especially round 1. We just drew a lot of mono-colored hands. There was not really anything we can do about that, so bit of a bummer there. Just a 5-win run from this deck. Would have liked to see it do better. I think it is definitely capable of a potential like 7-win run with some great luck, but we had a mixture of luck today, some good luck, some bad luck, and it is going to hit a little bit of the middle of where I think this deck lands, which is 5-3. Still, super respectable, super great record. Generally, just, I think the deck's quality was a bit above that. Biggest underperformer of the draft is definitely Mana Tithe. This card did stone cold nothing. I don't think we ever got to counter anything with it. And there were a few games where it was egregiously bad, like when they had like the Shark Typhoon, and then I think that was just the main time that it was super, super horrible. But maybe I'm forgetting. Maybe we did counter something with it at some point and it was fine. But it was horrible against the blue-white opponent in that one game. Biggest overperformer, the card that impressed me a lot more than I thought it would. I'm not actually sure here. Maybe Giver of Runes. I mean, I was rating that card real highly already, and then it just put in so much work protecting our stuff that had a maul on it. A lot of stuff like that, finding extra damage potentially at times, mostly just protecting things over and over again, making it really hard for our opponent to deal with the threats that they needed to deal with. So I'll give Overperformer to Giver of Runes. Card was super excellent. So yeah, biggest underperformer, Mana Tithe, overperformer, Giver of Runes. I think another underperformer is kind of the Skyclave apparition that didn't end up doing anything super great, but overall everything landed just about where I thought it would. And we are going to have a 5-win run. Grab our 4,000 gold, our 3 random rewards, including a Glory-bound Initiate and a Never to Return. A couple rares from Amonkhet Remastered. Very, very cool set. Very cool flavor there. It is the Egyptian mythology-themed set, and Amonkhet Remastered combines Amonkhet and Hour of Devastation. Hour of Devastation was the sequel where we find out that the Egyptian mythos-based set, Nico Bolas had come to like take it over, and then he came back years later for the Hour of Devastation. That's like the time of his return where he gets his giant zombie army. So I think it was a really cool couple sets. Amonkhet top-down Egyptian mythology themed, and then Hour of Devastation top-down Nico Bolas design themed. So 2 things that I think are super cool. So love that block. Would love to draft some more Amonkhet Remastered if they bring it back anytime soon. We'll definitely show it off on the channel. So cool rewards, solid stuff overall. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. And other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.